Hi guys, that's Boutique Politic English. David Zadov is with me, and today is April 23rd, 2025, Wednesday. Welcome on board, David. Let's discuss the most hot topic right now, which is that disaster that happened in London, considering canceling Marco Rubio and Steve Witkoff trip to London to discuss with the European partners and Ukrainian side. The biggest proposal was done last week for Ukrainian side to accept first in order to American and Ukrainian and Europeans give the proposal to Russia to start real negotiations about ceasefire and final settlement of Russian-Ukrainian war. So yesterday, Zelensky said that in proposal there were a couple of things outlined. I have to mention them first that we can go into discussion on this. So the first thing was said that in order to facilitate normal negotiations, United States will propose to recognize Crimea as Russian territory as the first position. Second position, that Ukraine will not seek NATO membership ever. And the third position, that war stops right now on the lines that are already the line of engagement. So on the front line is going to be stop line. So the war stops for ceasefire, at least on those particular lines. And then discussion going to go after ceasefire is reached. Discussion going to go on the final settlements with everything. So Ukraine was not required to recognize Crimea as a part of Russia. United States said that Trump in proposal said that United States will recognize Crimea as a part of Russia. So Zelensky, predictably, but in a very direct, straightforward manner, on Tuesday, yesterday, declined the offer and said that the Crimea cannot be ever considered part of Russia. Nobody can recognize it as such. And there was direct and straightforward thing. Also, French and German foreign minister were supposed to attend London meeting. They canceled. And after that, Rubio and Witkoff decided that the level is not enough. So they canceled the participation in the meeting. So London meeting that everybody were hoping gonna make it or break it point didn't happen this way. So meeting between Ukrainian officials and British Minister of Defense were not moving the thing forward. And Trump, the president, posted on Truth Social the post that it's a Ukrainian fault, that Zelensky fault, that whatever's happening is actually. But you can probably cite to us.
I have.
Please read it.
The tweet with me right now.
Not a tweet. I couldn't find it on Twitter.
No, the truth. I have the truth.
Yeah.
I have the truth with me right now. I'm going to read it in the Trump accent, and I'm going to try and unpack it because there's a lot in here, and there's a lot of contradictory stuff. It's a rant. So I'm going to read it. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is boasting on the front page of Wall Street Journal that Ukraine will not legally recognize the occupation of Crimea. There's nothing to talk about here. This statement is very harmful to the peace negotiations with Russia, in that Crimea was lost years ago under the auspices of President Barack Hussein Obama, and it's not even a point of discussion. Nobody is asking Zelensky to recognize Crimea as Russian territory, but if he wants Crimea, why didn't they fight for 11 years ago when it was handed over to Russia? Without a shot being fired, without one shot. The area also houses, for many years before the Obama handover, major Russian submarine bases. It's inflammatory statements like Zelensky's that makes it so difficult to sell this war. He has nothing to boast about. The situation for Ukraine is dire. He can have peace, or he can fight for another 3 years before losing the whole country. I have nothing to do with Russia. But I have much to do with wanting to save, on average, 5,000 Russian and Ukrainian soldiers a week who are dying for no reason whatsoever. The statement made by Zelensky today will do nothing but prolong the killing field, and nobody wants that. We are very close to a deal, but the man with no cards to play should now finally get it done. I look forward to being able to help Ukraine and Russia get out of this complete and total mess that would have never started had I been president. Okay.
So what's particular out of his statement appears to you is not true?
So first of all, he says that he wants to avoid the war, but then says Ukraine should have fought for it, but then says because Ukraine didn't fight for it, then it's Obama's fault. So
it's Obama's fault because he didn't help them.
Okay. Obama's fault because he didn't help them, but it's also Ukraine's fault because they didn't fire a shot, but he also wants peace in Ukraine. So there's three contradictions.
I don't see contradiction. He wants peace. He's making efforts for peace.
He's trying to do ceasefire. He says if Ukraine wanted their territory back in the face of an illegal invasion, they should have fought back.
Yes, obviously. In what year? 2014 years.
What were they supposed to do? Sorry, what were they supposed to do?
If they wanted to fight Russia in 2014, when Russia just got out military personnel and took over Crimea in that particular moment, and then made referendum and stuff like that, why Ukraine didn't do invasion to Crimea in 2014 then?
So you're criticizing. So you're saying Trump is criticizing Ukraine for not starting the war themselves. That's what you're saying.
But do you think that if other country annexes your territory, it's already kind of declaration of war?
Yes.
So Ukraine should defend the territories. You believe that?
So Ukraine should defend itself.
Then, yeah, of course, 2014.
What's different now?
Now they're defending themselves, but they want a peace, right? They're saying they want a peace more than everybody else.
They want peace. Yeah, they're saying they want peace.
So I don't see any contradiction again. In 2014, Trump is saying if they wanted to defend their territory, and after that for 10 years, from 8 years, from 2014 to 2022, they didn't do any military attempt to regain the territory they lost, right?
Yeah.
So
but there were small scale attempts too. But
not in Crimea. Diversion, some sabotage acts, but nothing serious. Also, they were doing platform Crimea and do stuff like that, trying to gain international support to press Russia to give the territory back to Ukraine, which is obviously for everyone who understood that it's not possible at all. So now that it's not going to happen anyway. So Trump is saying one thing, basically, with that for status quo already, that is right now, that territory is controlled by Russia, annexed by Russia. It's now, there's no way in the world it can get back to Ukraine, except for some absolutely unpredictable situation, like in 30 years from now, if Ukraine will do about face the same Georgia does after 30 years of independence, like something like that. You understand what I'm saying? I'm saying like this. We see that Georgia used to pursue different policies, more European-oriented, Western-oriented, and then after certain big passage of a huge amount of time, they made about face it, realized that with West they can gain anything, and they went much closer to Russia. In this particular case, right now what's happening with Georgia, I'm just explaining. So in this particular case, if geopolitical situation will change, and Russia and Ukraine will be again friends, which is possible. We see that with Georgia, for example, again. It's possible, because we don't know. You know, England and France fought 100 years war, and now they're friends. You understand? And they were killing each other crazy. And they then, in First World War, even in more serious example, France and Germany had number of wars in 19th century, French-Prussian wars. They were enemies in First World War and Second World War. And now they're friends and partners and allies. So if geopolitical reality will change, that maybe in this case, status of Crimea might change. But that's, I'm sorry, I'm just like, it's absolutely unlikely situation, unlikely scenario, and it's like now sounds like science fiction, but in history we knew some example. Other than this, there is no possible way for Crimea to go back to Ukraine. So now, why is Zelensky saying it's absolutely incomprehensible that even if he continued to call Crimea occupied by Russia, also it's populated by Russians, mostly it's 2 million Russian people ethnically live in Crimea. So now why he's continuing to say, there are no Ukrainians in Crimea, so why he is continuing to say that Ukraine will never recognize Crimea as a part of Russia? How that helps achieving peace.
It's not everything has to be for the goal of achieving peace. He can be along the path of achieving peace, and meanwhile he's trying to talk to his people and reassure them, because he fundamentally is right. It is not rightfully Russian territory. It
Who
was
said
his
that? That's
territory, and it was an illegal
David, that's
invasion.
point of narrative.
So it's not a narrative. It was by
Hold on.
fact illegal, but de jure an illegal
No,
invasion.
there was a referendum. There's a right of
It
nation
doesn't matter. It's an illegal invasion. You can put all the referendums you want.
Hold on, David. Hold on. Let's argue
Okay.
calmly and
Yeah.
logically. Again, you know that there is a right of nations to self-determination. You understand that?
Yeah.
That's fundamental right of a nation to self-determine the fate, right? We also know the fact that Crimea used to be Russian territory since, I would say, 18th century, since Peter the Great. Catherine the Great, I'm sorry. Since Catherine the Great, emperors of Russia, Crimea was Russian territory taken from Ottoman Empire. So Russia got Crimea in 18th century. Then fought for it in a couple of wars, fought for Crimea in 19th century in Crimean campaign.
Yeah.
Then fought for it in Second World War also as a part of the Soviet Union. And Crimea was a part of Russian Federation. And then Nikita Khrushchev in 50s gave that to Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic as a gift. And judicial procedures that's supposed to be followed according to Soviet Constitution, by the way, was not followed. Then what happened?
So they didn't give it up as a gift then.
They
gave it as a white elephant, then you're saying.
Yeah.
It's white. So you just admitted that it was with bad intent given to the territory of Ukraine.
He was redrawing administrative maps of one country, Soviet Union, taken from one republic of Soviet Union, and give it to the territory to another republic of one country, Soviet Union. So it was inside the Soviet Union, it was a rare distribution over territory.
If you want to talk
but
about
the procedure was not followed proper. There was supposed to be a certain a council of Verkhovny, of the parliament of Soviet Union of that time. It was not followed properly.
What it sounds like to me is that you're saying it was both given as a gift to Ukraine and not given as a gift to Ukraine, and you're choosing the more convenient option for your argument. That's what
no.
Yeah.
Forget it. Even if we consider that everything was okay, let's, for the sake of the argument, say that Crimea was given proper.
Yes.
Right. And also we have to remember that Russia signed the treaty, Budapest Memorandum, saying the 1991 first agreement of dissolution of Soviet Union, Russian Federation. Yeltsin signed that all borders have no disputes with Ukraine. And then 1996 in Budapest Memorandum, it was mentioned that Ukraine got to be territorial, gonna have a territorial integrity. Nobody had any claim to Crimea. That's no problem. But then in 2014, after Russia took over all the administrative points in Crimea, after Ukraine, again, there's a point of narrative. Because according to Russian narrative, whatever happened in February 2014 in Ukraine was a coup d'etat. Because removal of legitimate President Yanukovych from the position was an act that is not written in Constitution. It was an unconstitutional way. So everything that happened after, except for Parliament of Ukraine, no legitimate power existed at that time in Ukraine. Whoever came in place of Yanukovych without presidential election of that time was not legitimate ruler.
It's a fringe theory, Dad. I'm sorry. If we're basing our doctrine on, if we're using the doctrine of realism, then we have to stick to that. We can't switch to narrative here. We have to understand that if it is the ruling government in Ukraine and it effectively governs, then it is the government of Ukraine.
Hold on, but it's not. But overthrowing Yanukovych was not a legitimate act according to Constitution of Ukraine.
The Constitution of Ukraine, I'm pretty sure, like every other Western European country and America, states that if the government becomes so corrupt that it no longer serves the people, like many people would argue in 2014, then
not the majority of the Ukrainian population. And also, before that, opposition signed a treaty with Russia in presence of Minister of Foreign Relations of Poland, Germany, and France, that Yanukovych will remain in power till the end of 2014, and the other things were written there, and then will not participate in election in December of 2014. That agreement was desecrated by Ukrainian opposition forces right away. In 3 days after that agreement was signed, they overthrew Yanukovych when he was away.
Yep.
So that's an illegitimate act of coup d'etat, according to Ukrainian constitution, even and agreement that they signed. That's in the point of realism, if you want to continue. But again, let's not go deep into history. And let's
A coup d'etat is never.
I just don't want
there's a
to
difference
waste
between a
time
coup
on this because
d'etat.
it's a big,
Okay,
it's a point of big dispute. And
but you can't. Okay,
and
I don't.
let me
I'm
finish,
sorry.
please.
I understand you want to finish, but it
please
is.
let me finish. And it's a point of a big dispute and fight of narratives. I don't want us to go to this. I want us, let's say for sake of argument that Russia took Ukraine illegally, Crimea illegally. Let's say even that. Let me even argue like you arguing, that Crimea was illegally annexed.
Yeah.
Okay? Disregard the referendum and 2 million people who wanted it. Forget about that. And even Ukrainian opposition leaders of the time, pro-Maidan.
Here, I'm sorry. I have to talk because you're inserting your own narrative as you're trying to appear objective, and it's really unfair because I'm not allowed to respond to it. So if you want to insert like your narrative, that's fine, but I want to be able to respond to that. First of all, there's a lot of controversy surrounding those referendums. There's a lot of controversy surrounding the opinion of the Russians, even if it is a majority in Crimea, and there is also the dispute about whether or not Ukrainians and Russians are the same, as claimed by Putin in his own manifestos and his own racial theories, right? So if we want to talk about ethnicity, we can't pick and choose when we want to use that as an argument.
Let's say different. Let's say Ukrainians are one and Russians are different, another. No problem with that. In Crimea, ethnic Russians are 2 million people. That's what I'm trying to say. You have Crimean Tatars, like another 50, maybe 100,000 people, almost no Ukrainians. And people who are living in Crimea are ethnically Russians. Even if you say that Putin is not right and Russians and Ukrainians are two different ethnicities. Whatever, go for the sake of argument. Let's leave history behind. So now, they are next Crimea. Let's say you're right, it's illegal. Let's say for your sake, for sake of the argument that it's illegal, your narrative is okay, that official Ukrainian narrative is okay, but still, Crimea is annexed by Russia, now part of Russian Federation, according to Russian constitution. And the Russian troops are there. And considering Russia is a major nuclear power, nobody is going to take that by force. It's not possible that somebody can take that territory by force from Russia. I don't believe that's possible. So now you want to make peace. You want to stop the war. We're talking Zelensky now. So I see everything that's happening right now is a second part of White House performance. So now he's playing internal electorate. He's playing domestic audience. He is thinking about his political survival more than he's thinking about fate of his country.
I think we've discussed this before. There's no indication that he is thinking of his political survival more. It's purely speculation based on a few aspects which contradict the rest of his character. And generally, whatever you say about he's focusing on his own political fate is speculation purely. So if like we discussed this in a previous episode, by all means it's possible, but we cannot use this as the likely story, let alone the factual. Like this is an opinion propagated by Russian media, of course, and conservative media.
That's what American media is writing also. You see,
American media.
You read Wall Street Journal. You cannot suppose Wall Street Journal is pro-Russian media outlet. I'm sorry. Wall Street Journal?
It's an opinion. Okay, in the opinion, they are. In their opinion articles, they are by far pro-Russia. In their
but
opinion
they're
articles,
not Russian media outlet, David. And
yeah, you're right. Because they didn't let me finish my sentence. I said Russian media and conservative media in the United States. That's the narrative. Russian media and conservative media in the United States. I wasn't able to finish my sentence. But yeah.
I don't understand what you're saying. You're saying conservative media, first of all, Wall Street Journal is not that conservative. It's basically in the center right.
It's owned by the same company that owns Fox, and it is conservative in its opinion articles, yes.
Not only, they sometimes put very
There
liberal
are,
things.
yes, they have liberal writers occasionally, but when they talk about geopolitics and usually economics, they put rightists on the opinion.
But you did read articles in Wall Street Journal about Russia, and they were talking sometimes very negatively and very critically of Russia and Russian policies, and they never hesitate.
You can't
to
offer
criticize
infinite praises to Russia. I'm not saying that they're like absolute blind followers of the Putin doctrine, but they give him a lot more credit than he's due, and they do they grant him a lot of things that should be questioned more, and that would suggest that it is effectively pro-Russian media, and the fact that it's owned by the same company that owns Fox.
So you're saying Rupert Murdoch is the Russian agent? Whatever.
Yeah.
No, it's
Yeah,
absolutely it's nonsense.
saying,
Let's go to let's immerse ourselves again back to our main topic of discussion. So whatever Trump is saying that if peace is not achieved, then in 3 years Ukraine ceases to exist, is echoing the words of chief of Central Intelligence Office of Ukraine, Kirill Budanov, who is he was saying like 2 months ago that if we won't achieve a peace in nearest future, then we have an existential threat to Ukraine. So basically, and that 3 years time to finish the state, that for end of state, that's what Trump was saying in Truth Social, is based, I think, is based on the previous 3 years of war and the tempo with which Russia is taking more and more Ukrainian territory almost every day. And flowing away a lot of Ukrainians out of the country, and the problems Ukrainian military administration facing getting recruits for the army right now for the continuing of the war. So when he's saying that he has no cards, meaning Zelensky has no cards, he means exactly that. What cards Zelensky has on hand?
You act like Russia is not also drafting. Like, I'm sorry, this is a draft. When they're struggling to find volunteers. That's why they have a draft. You could phrase it like they're struggling to find recruits.
Draft. Both in Russia and in Ukraine. Ukraine has a very serious problem right now.
You could say that they're having a problem with finding recruits, but that's just a draft. That's another way to put the draft. Both countries have the draft.
Right. Ukraine right now, no problem. Yeah. Ukraine right now is having problems to get people to fight. They're taking them out of the streets, from restaurants, nightclubs. They have like serious policies right now. If you're not familiar, read what Ukrainian publics are writing. What's going on right now in Ukraine?
It's again with the street abductions. What they do is that they have people in the streets and they check if you're eligible for the draft.
Yeah.
And if you're eligible for the draft, they tell you come by the office. Come by the recruitment office.
No, they're just taking them right away.
Very rare thing if they're like resisting.
Not that rare.
It is a very rare thing.
Not that rare. But again, we can't argue about facts. They are all over open. You can see them and check them. Let's not waste our time on this. So what should be done right now? How to stop the madness? Because you see, for Russia, they can continue, but also they would like to reset relations with the United States, obviously, because that chance to do complete reset happens not so often, and it will present Russia with certain opportunities and possibilities. For United States also, there's a certain profit of, first of all, taking Russia a little bit away from China, because China is probably the main adversary that the United States will have to deal with in the nearest future, if no deal is reached. Deal might be reached, but might not be reached. So in this particular case, I would say at least not to has to be able to fight 1 against 2, at least to have Russia, at least in part, not so aligned with China, if that's possible. That can be done only if you facilitate some certain cooperation with Russia on the areas of mutual interest. That are many, by the way.
That's one way to phrase to say that Russia wants to extend their relationship with the United States is one way to phrase it. But what they mean by they want to extend a relationship with the United States is we want to extend a relationship with the United States on terms that are the most beneficial for us, because that's realism, but
Right.
also the most beneficial for expansionist policies. That is
What policies?
expansionist policies.
What
Expansion of influence.
What do you mean by that?
Expansion of influence of Russia and CSTO and the general hegemony. They want to expand the hegemony. They want to expand the sphere of influence by default. It is not a
No,
new
they want
entropy.
their own sphere of influence after 1945. That was
They
already
want to
established.
they want to return to the sphere of influence that they had
Yeah,
under the Soviet Union,
yeah,
which includes
yeah.
many sovereign members of the West.
Yeah, true.
So
But
you
they're
have
not.
to like so
No,
like
no.
come on. Sorry.
First of all, we don't say that.
Okay.
They have national interest. To go into Poland, as any country, you have to give a credit to every country has its own national interest, David. So
I just I said
right.
it's real
So
doctrine,
now
but
they won't going into Poland and occupy Poland. They might be thinking about
the Baltics.
Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, might be. But
So,
no Poland.
so you say this. Listen to yourself though. Like it sounds ridiculous that like why isn't America pursuing a better relationship with Russia? They just want to invade a few of their allies. Like come on, just a few of their allies. We only want 3 of your allies. Come on, just be friends with us. Come on.
Hold on. But according to 1989 framework of how world's supposed to look like, NATO should never be able to be in Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania.
What is this? The metric? I don't understand. What is this metric you're using to determine how the world should work?
The world of 1999, who was the president? Bush Senior? Bush Senior. Yeah, the agreement that they had before destruction of Berlin Wall and pull out Soviet troops from Germany, that NATO won't go on those territories, but NATO will.
There was no, first of all, it was a verbal agreement between one president who decided that he was going to speak for the entire West without consulting them. He said, a conservative president who has a differing opinion from people even in my own country, is going to
David, it's the United States you're talking about. You're talking about the main
United
country
States,
of the
and
NATO.
many people were disagreeing with George Senior. George Senior.
Bush Senior.
George Bush Senior. Many people disagreed with his foreign policy because people did not like the conservative foreign policy.
Why didn't they say that out loud when Berlin Wall was distracted? Why was not everybody protesting what Bush was saying to Gorbachev? It was common knowledge.
It was not common knowledge.
It was
a private agreement. At first, it was private.
It was not private. Everybody knew about that. Listen, again, let's get back to our topic that we can do forever. That can continue without end. Now, have to excuse me. Again, now, we have time till May 1st, and maybe in Rome on a Papa's funeral in 3 days from now, Trump will meet Zelensky. It's possible. They will going to be both in Rome, and that's an opportunity.
I'm not sure Trump would be allowed at Pope's funeral.
Of course, he was invited. What do you mean? It's not even a
I don't know if he was invited on the terms that politics would not be discussed. So
yeah.
If he wants to go for politics, then
of course not on funeral.
Yeah.
But they both in the same city. So after that, on the side of this event, they might meet.
I don't see what much could come out of it.
You don't think that they can finally talk and decide that they want to go for, that Zelensky really want to go for the 30-day ceasefire, and that he will avoid any harsh language meantime?
I hope they're going to talk if they don't skip like Rubio, but if they do talk, I doubt anything's going to come out of it.
But Vitkov is going Friday to Moscow.
Yeah.
It's not canceled. Mm-hmm. So they do have to discuss certain matters.
That's true.
And they will discuss certain matters. Now, I understand that you remember warning of Rubio that if we won't see progress very soon, we're going to walk out of peace negotiations. That we'll prioritize different directions of American foreign policies that are more important right now that can give us fruits faster. You heard Rubio saying this, right?
Yeah.
So now let me ask you this. In case America will really walk out of negotiations, what does it mean in your opinion for Ukraine?
If America walks out of negotiations, that probably means that they're also going to stop funding Ukraine, judging by the disposition of this administration, right? So if they stop funding Ukraine, like I said, EU already has a pool for them to at least survive, barely, if anything. But they'll obviously not be able to go on offensives. But if Ukraine has to, I think they will be able to survive until the next administration, at least.
Really?
Yeah.
You really believe that Ukraine will able to, without American help, survive as a state till 2028, even 2029?
Yeah. What I'm saying is Europe has been pledging, European countries have been pledging billions of dollars as a result of recent events, especially France and UK. And France, UK, and Germany have been putting in a lot of work into the EU fund to make sure that before the election in America, they called it a Trump-proof plan to make sure that Ukraine survives as a country. I think it's enough. It will be enough to allow them to survive because it won't be that much less money, considering they'll be putting more funds into it to account for the loss of the American funds. Ukraine probably will see more land loss during that period of time. But I don't think Ukraine will fall by any means. At this rate, Russia is moving at a snail's pace. They're bogged down still. The tiny villages with like 50 people in them are trading hands. And it's not going anywhere. It's like at this rate, it's going to take 50 years to reach Kiev. So if the money stops coming in from America, it's not the end of the world for Ukraine.
So you think that Ukraine can survive without American help, basically, what you're saying?
Not forever, but long enough, I think. They won't survive a decade. But
with those kind
really,
of attacks from Russia, you think?
Yeah.
So, and on condition that Russia will not increase the effort, right? That there will be no major offensive during that time, that will be successful. Without certain American equipment, they won't be able to even provide proper anti-missile defense.
Well, European countries buy American equipment and then they give that to Ukraine.
No, they're not allowed to. Even Britain already said, remember when Trump stopped after that meeting with Zelensky in Oval Office? He stopped the help and everything and share intelligence. And Ukraine asked Great Britain to share intelligence. They said, we're not allowed to because we also use American one.
Yeah, but those were leased, not the ones that they actually bought. If it was American property, then yes. But the actual equipment that Britain and France and other EU countries buy is European. It's their operating system. It's their rules. They don't function on American foreign policy. They function on with the foreign policy, what the dictation of the ruling part of Europe is.
Okay.
If UK was leasing those and giving them to Ukraine, then I understand what they mean. But
so basically, you're saying, I'm sorry for basically you're saying that Ukraine can survive without American help, and Europe, England and France in particular, are big enough to fit American shoes in this particular case, right?
I think not just UK and France in particular, but almost every European country is increasing their funding to Ukraine as we speak. Also, we have to understand
they're increasing.
Yeah, well, they're pledging it and then they're delivering over time. But we have to understand that Ukraine has been dividing its efforts between defensive measures and offensive measures. And if they switch purely to defense, if they have to, if another major Russian assault comes, especially in the summer, they could survive it. They just have to stop doing offensives and concentrate on defensive measures and keep a good relationship with Europe. It's really all it is. I mean, I don't mean to. I mean, it's obviously I'm oversimplifying it, but you know,
You think it's doable? No, the main
yeah, I think
point
it's
is you think
doable.
it's doable.
It's definitely doable.
Okay, I got your argument. That's probably if that's what Zelensky is counting on. Also, we have to consider the mood on the street of Kiev
Yeah,
and Dnieper and Kryvyi and Lvov and other Ukrainian cities where people, civilians, are probably, I would say, I think it's an understatement, but I think they're tired.
morale fluctuates. It has fluctuated for a while. Sometimes when another Russian offensive fails, it goes up. When some Ukrainian counteroffensive is successful, it goes up, and then it goes down at like a constant rate. And then so it's just fluctuating most of the time. It's stagnant usually.
And we have to know
Yeah.
also, David, that whatever polls are conducted in Ukraine, we cannot trust them.
Yeah, of course, I agree.
Right.
But from the information we have,
Because I have sometimes different info on the popular mood on Ukrainian cities. But again, I cannot 100% trust my sources in this because everybody lie on the war. It's obvious. Thank you very much for that. That opinion is, by the way, very important because we can see more clearly why Zelensky is behaving like this according to realist narrative. So he thinks, according to you at least, he thinks that it is possible to survive without American help, and he will not enlist this administration on his side anyway. He thinks so. Why should he lose everybody else? And considering right now not simple and easy relationship of Trump and European Union, he thinks he probably can play on contradiction right now.
yeah.
That's what you think is right according to him, and maybe I hear you. I can understand what you're saying and how Zelensky thinks from rational point of view. Is he pragmatic enough? And that's pretty pragmatic position. If uh, besides one point that it's really Ukraine is fighting the country with much bigger resources, which is not also supposed to ask anyone for help. And I'm talking Russia. And Russia can continue to fight with this kind of low intensity warfare, I would say, or very, very long time, like extended period of time. I don't think Ukraine had that time. But that's my position. You're saying that they can survive till next administration, and we have to also assume that that administration should be not Republican and Democratic for Ukraine to be rewarded for that kind of.
Yeah, I'm hedging my bets that it will be Democratic. Anything could happen, but
we'll see. Thank you very much for that conversation. As always, it's delightful. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining me, and we'll continue that. And we'll see, by the way, next week, maybe before 100 days in office, we'll see ceasefire. There's a light possibility of this. Light possibility of this.
I hope so.
Thank you. Thank you, guys, for watching this, and we will see each other, I hope, again, like in a week time. Bye-bye.